Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gaming Mix podcast, your official podcast from analogstickgaming.com. My name is Jordan, of course. To my right, as always, is Jeff. But we have a little bit of a different look today and a special guest down below, our good friend Naman MBZ. Because as you can tell, he's a big Nintendo fan, and something big happened for Nintendo recently. So
it's a small little thing, you know.
So we feel like we'll be talking about that today. That's going to be our main topic, which is the Nintendo Switch 2, of course. I have mine right here as well.
Get the triple.
You can do it.
Just like summon Miyamoto. You just got to hold it in a Triforce pattern, and he will appear.
But yeah, I don't know about you guys. I have a lot to say about this launch and this machine.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Naman, you've probably spoken quite a bit about it already, because if people don't know, you do have your own podcast, right?
I do, yeah. So we did like a first weekend. Basically, our podcast recording schedule didn't line up with the launch of Switch 2. So I did like a diary of the weekend, the first weekend with it. So me and my co-host Bally, we both recorded some kind of like short snippets of like our experience. We actually did a new innovation that I'm trying to push on podcast now. It's called an audio unboxing. You know how on YouTube people do unboxings? We did audio. We basically just podcasted our unboxing. So
it's like, all right, I'm just going to like crinkle open.
Yeah, it's like a bit of ASMR going on.
Controller.
Yeah. So
ASMR unboxing.
Yeah, totally. So we did that, and then did a whole 2.5 hour podcast on last week or earlier this week. It came out. I don't know when this show's going out, but you know, it's out there. You can listen to it if you want.
It will be probably tomorrow at time of recording, because by the time we finish, it will be too late for today. Right. So I'll probably put it up tomorrow. But if people don't know, there is something else that you do.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What else might you be known for other than wearing a weird suit to the Game Awards?
No, that's me. I'm local. Thought I could reveal here and now. Yeah, it's a surprising number of people came up to me there. Were like, "Are you local?" I'm like, "No, it's not me." So yeah, I work at a publisher called PlayStack. We're a small indie publisher in the UK, and we publish games like Balatro, Case of the Golden Idol, Mortal Shell, and just recently announced Mortal Shell 2 over the Summer Game Fest period. And for some reason, Jeff put us as the first announcement of Summer Game Fest, so that was fun. So yeah, it's been busy time over here, but it's going well. Got some cool games coming out this year, and yeah, excited for it. So
I mean, I feel like, and this isn't just me saying this because you're my friend, and I would say we are friends at this point, but every single game PlayStack seems to have a hand in. Finds an audience. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Okay, you've had some that are definitely much bigger successes than others.
Yes, absolutely.
One called Balatro that took over everybody's lives.
Yeah.
And apparently is the next game that's going to be on every platform forever. When's it going to be on fridges? You know, like
question. We've got to do a deal with some fridge manufacturers out here. I'm personally hoping that at some point Microsoft pays us like 17 billion just to put it on every PC on Earth, right? Just have it pre-installed on Windows.
Album.
Yeah. Just pay us like at least 20 billion, and then it'll be on every Windows device forever. So that's my pitch, I think. So.
But I mean, I always claim, and I don't know if this is true, but I kind of think it is. I always claim that you discovered the game, because that was kind of your job at the time, right?
Yeah, kind of still is. So yeah, it's called Discovery. We call it Discovery. It's called Game Scouting. It's basically the people who try and find the games that get signed by a publisher. So yeah, me and my colleague Patrick, we found Balatro on Steam the day it went up on Steam. It had 4 followers on Steam, and we're like, oh, that looks like a cool idea.
Do you just like randomly? So I have to ask a little bit about this process, because I know about it from some other industry colleagues and things as well. But for people who don't know, do you just randomly sit there on Steam and go, what's the most random game I can find? Oh, this one looks cool.
Kind of. It's a little bit more structured than that, but the idea is literally every morning we have a system that basically collects every game that was uploaded to Steam the day before and just shows it to us and just shows, everything's here. So basically every morning we just go through Steam and they're like, what did people put up on Steam just as the pages? So
just
that's how we find stuff.
Epic Ball Bounce, Hentai Stories 1, Hentai Stories 2.
You you make a joke about it, but the amount of anime, hentai, just general porn is staggering.
The eShop, like literally every tab page has some.
It's honestly, it's crazy. Yeah.
So before we move on to Nintendo, which is obviously the main topic, I want to ask you a Balatro-related question.
Sure. Yeah.
For you specifically, when did you realize that Balatro was going to be this mega hit?
So I don't think I thought it was going to be a mega hit, but basically the week before, basically this is a game that I knew was going to do well within its niche, just because we had a lot of wish lists, and like every like big roguelike streamer had played it already and like was into it, and so I knew within its audience, like people who play Slay the Spire and stuff like that, I was like, yeah, people are really going to love this.
So people like you, essentially.
Yeah, well, like Northern Lion, right? Who's like one of the biggest guys in the space. Like he loved the game. Like loads of people. We had like a tournament with streamers beforehand.
Oh wow! Okay.
And like. Yeah, it was a big thing, and then Next Fest was quite big for us as well. But I knew that it was going to be big in that space, right? But I was like, oh, maybe we can do as well as Monster Train, right? Monster Train was like the second one after Slay the Spire. I was like, maybe we can like be as big as Monster Train. That was kind of my idea. And then like a week before launch, I was playing on Switch because we had the Switch version early, and I was just in bed, just like giving it a go. I had this like wild run of like I was using steel cards and like purple seals, and I was like, this really funky build, and I was like doing well with it, and I'm like, are we about to publish one of the best games ever made? Like I just have this thought in my head as I'm playing it, like 5-6 days before launch. I'm like, I think this game might be really, really good, you know? Like I knew it was good, but like I was like, is this one of the so that definitely gave me an inkling of like, people are really, really going to like this. It wasn't until the day of launch where I was literally sitting in a meeting, and we could see like the Steam numbers happening as it was going. And, you know, it released, and I was like, okay, how are we doing? How many people are playing it? And I refreshed like literally 1 minute after the game goes live, and there are 4,000 people playing it. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh shit, that's quite a lot. And then literally 2 minutes later, I refresh, and there's 17,000 people playing it. I'm like,
oh wow,
what the fuck is going on? I'm like, we could see very early that like it's going almost immediately.
But the game was an interesting one, right? Because obviously it captured that audience it was meant for very quickly, but then it became something else. It kind of got its own life because people who would never and probably will never otherwise play this genre of game have played Balatro.
Yeah, absolutely.
When did you start to realize that was happening?
I mean, like, I think probably quite early, but I think there's two stages to it, right? Like we sold like 1 million in the first month, which was insane. And I was like, okay, this is like a big hit. This is doing very well. But then there's loads of other games that do that, right? Like lots of bigger games as well. Like a game like Enshrouded came out and sold 1 million in like the same time period, and that didn't have like the same critical acclaim, and like so that's a whole thing of it's a survival game and stuff like that. But I think like the actual bigger phenomenon of it was actually when we got nominated for the Game Awards. That being nominated for the Game Awards is insane, the amount of visibility that it gives you. It's
I can
crazy
imagine.
because
it's
like
billboard for the world, pretty much.
Totally. So the game was popular, and quite a few people knew about it, like hardcore people within the space. But once that happened, once it got the visibility of being on that stage, it went just wide and away. Like I think the moment for me was when someone sent me an interview of Jack Black talking about the game. That's when I was like, "Well, this is stupid."
Brilliant.
I was like, this is
so there was something I noticed around. I'm glad you brought up being nominated at the Game Awards for lots of things, obviously. And that's where we saw you in your lovely suit.
Yeah.
But something that I noticed happening around that time with the game was it was almost like just that nomination became validation, where people who hadn't played it yet went, oh, okay, maybe this is as good as people actually say it is.
Or people being baffled, being like, why is a card game nominated for Game of the Year, you know? And then playing it, then coming back to social media and being like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is the best thing. So that was a very funny loop of people being like confused about it,
Well, I think it is, but it is that funny thing, right? Because it's like, when you look at the game on the face of it, it is a card game.
Yeah,
but it's so much more than that.
Totally,
There's actually so much depth in that game that it's the cards become secondary. You're not even
Right.
you're not even really thinking about the cards. You're thinking about how you can connect all these things together and all this stuff. And brilliant success, and one of my favorite games in a very, very long time. And I do have it on every platform. Some of those are thanks
Appreciate
to
it.
you, so thank you very much. But yes, I feel like it's a game that could still take over my life if I allowed it to. So I've kind of slowed down on playing it a little bit now.
Yeah, it's definitely it's if you have an addictive personality, it's an advisement, I think. So
Yes.
For I'll
go on.
question there. So Balatro comes out, it's a success, everyone's
Mhm.
playing it, and then suddenly we're seeing like crossovers with
Yeah.
all these other different companies.
Yes.
How does that start? Who was the first to kind of start, and like how does that then snowball to getting like all of these other companies? Are they just seeing that
Right.
crossover and wanting to be part of it, or what's going on?
Yeah, so it's a lot of it's down to Wout. Shout out, he's our comms director. Has a lot of connections in the games industry.
It's so funny because I actually knew. So I knew WoW before you even started working for PlayStack.
Yes.
and then you guys ended up working together. It was so weird.
Well, so I knew of him because he was big in the Easy Allies community, like for many years, and so he worked for Evolve PR previously.
He did, yes,
and we actually worked with him. We worked with Evolve PR, so that's how we connected with him. Then we stole him from Evolve, basically.
Stole him because he was very good at his job.
Yeah. So WoW was messaging with a bunch of basically like a lot of people in the industry were just big fans of the game, and so I think it was Radic from CDPR reached out to him first, and so it was the Witcher and Cyberpunk stuff that was the actual initial, which is not the one you would expect to be. It's like because they're one of the biggest games, but they like. He was super into it, and he was getting everyone in their office into it. Same with Larian. I think Tom over at Larian got everyone, and he was the one who got Sven into it as well. So Larian and CDPR are actually kind of the first two.
Wow.
But then after that, we had obviously Among Us and Vampire Survivors. Those ones, they're kind of like the indie scene of like big games. So that was a similar connection of like, hey, you guys went through this crazy thing blowing up, and it was kind of like, let's talk to them as well.
That one was cool though, because that did almost feel like a bit of a brotherhood. Like
totally, yeah, for
like
sure.
We've all done this thing, and
right.
Let's celebrate it together in this one game, kind of thing.
Yeah,
cool.
The Dave the Diver one's funny. My colleague Aaron, we were at GDC, and he needed a charger for his laptop. He was at this like party, and the guy who gave him the charger for his laptop was the director of Dave the Diver, and so he got chatting, and then when this kind of collab stuff came up, we reached out, and he was very down to it. So
it's so weird how things like that can happen. Though, isn't it? You know, sometimes stuff is just so dynamic. But if a local thunk or PlayStack ever want to put a games media pack of cards in the game,
sure, yeah.
Analog Stick Gaming will be in there for free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just, like it's almost funny. Like Dave the Diver has become this like connective tissue across everywhere because it's on Revenge of the Savage Planet, and then tag teamed with the Dredge as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so funny seeing that character everywhere.
Yeah, it's not the game you expect to get all these updates.
And then it even had some sort of crossover with Yakuza at one point.
Right, yeah, that's mad. I think Ichiban's going to be in Dave, which is great. So yeah, that was kind of the initial, because the initial one we did was with Nintendo Indie Direct, which highlighted my career being able to get into a Nintendo presentation doing that. So that was very, very cool. And then after that, it just kind of blew up, because as soon as that video went live with the first 4 collabs, then everyone's knocking on our door being like, oh, hey, can we do something? And then kind of goes from there. The surreal one. Yeah, go ahead.
I have to ask, because there is one more thing about all these collaborations and everything. But I would argue that the greatest collaboration that the entire game has had so far is Ben Starr. Like,
yes.
Like, Ben Starr has just, I don't know, it's like, that guy, I feel like I've never met him, and I hope to meet him and speak to him one day.
Mm-hmm.
But, because he's actually from the same place that I am, which is really cool. But, he strikes me as someone who when he gets involved in something, he gives it his all. Like,
yes.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he turns up in full costume at the BAFTAs.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he was great. So we went and we shot that. I think it was basically a 1-day shoot, and we went to Bristol to shoot it in like a big warehouse place. And yeah, I mean, he was.
So you came to Bristol and didn't even tell me your really good friend.
I was very busy.
You came to Bristol.
I was very busy. So yeah, and we did it there. But he was up for everything, like very, very hands-on with it, and just super easy to work with, and yeah, very, very game for anything, basically. A lot of the stuff in that trailer is just him improving just because he wanted to. So yeah, it was very cool.
Nice.
That's cool. That's really good. And you know, we love Ben Starr, we love Balatro, and since I've stopped playing Balatro, there is a game that's actually taken over my life in the last week or so, and it's called Mario Kart. I've just been playing Mario Kart World all the time. I don't know about you guys, but I really, really like it. I have a couple of little issues with the game, but yeah, it turns out that Mario Kart World is pretty cool.
Yeah, no costume for dry bones, so 3 out of 10 right there.
But let's start by talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 itself before we get to the games and the lineup and everything. Because a lot of the conversation I've seen around this console and this launch is people being underwhelmed and it not really feeling like a new console launch and that kind of thing. So, Naman, as our resident Nintendo expert here,
yes,
would you say that some of those comments are valid, or do you think, do you think people are being a little harsh to Nintendo here?
No, I think the thing is, the irony of it is that this is what everybody asked for, right? If you would ask anybody, what do you want from the next Switch? They'd be like, just another one, but give more power to it, right? And it's a boring answer, but it's ultimately what people want. I think some of the disappointment comes from the fact the launch lineup is a little light in terms of first-party stuff. That's always really the case, if I'm honest. Like, usually you only have 1 or 2 things from first-party when it comes to launch. Nintendo like to pace their releases out just so they have a good cadence of stuff coming, and they don't want to,
Well, we know at this point that there are some games they finish like years before they even bring them out. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So they have a plan, right? And there's like, okay, Donkey Kong's going to come next month, and then a month after we'll have something else, and they got Metro Prime.
Let's be honest, we have to talk about that just this second because I saw Andy from VGC shared the picture on social media. I think it was yesterday on the London subway of like
it was Oxford Circus as well. I go there to go to the office. I didn't even see it. So
like Metroid out now, and it's like, oh, okay, someone's made a mistake.
Yeah, well, you can see underneath there. It's clearly like they've left a Photoshop layer on. It's very clearly someone's made a big mistake, but yeah.
But I did also see Ryan McCaffrey of IGN say that if they were sent that version of the poster, that means the game can't be that far away. Because if they were already sent that version of the poster.
I don't think so, because the way they've done it, right, is it's a Photoshop layer of out now. So Mario Kart World gets the out now. So the games that get out now have that, and the games that get 25 get a separate one. So I don't buy that personally. I think it's just an error.
We haven't even had a direct or a showcase for it, and Donkey Kong had one. So there's no way it's coming out before Donkey Kong.
Yeah. I think it's like November or something probably.
So Naman, are you not on board with this idea that I know that some people were saying that because they think the launch lineup's been weak because what they expect Nintendo to do is have one major game a month from now up until Christmas.
Yeah.
And I know that some people are now speculating that Metroid might be like the next major game after Donkey Kong.
I don't know. I feel like they're gonna have something else in there. My prediction is we're gonna get a direct after Donkey Kong comes out. The way Nintendo usually works is that they have marketing beats that they want to hit, and they don't want to say something about a new thing until they've got something out of the way, right? So as soon as Donkey Kong releases, that's open season for speculation on when a direct's going to drop, because all of a sudden you then have to fill up the lineup for the rest of the year, and you have to give people
It'd be funny if they did it on the same day, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would. Yeah.
Donkey Kong is out now, and
you know,
we're
like,
doing a direct.
It's not like they've done ridiculous things before, such as doing a Switch 1 direct the week before the Switch 2 direct. You know, like stuff like that is.
And that's one thing I would say. I don't know if both of you feel the same, but I feel like Nintendo, in the way they present and market things, are a little bit inconsistent.
But
I almost feel like they do it on purpose so that people can't figure out what they're gonna do. Like,
some decisions I just completely baffle me. So there's the Splatoon spin-off that got announced last week, and I didn't click the video it was announced in because it was just titled like "Update from the Splatoon lab," and I'm like, okay, that's probably some rubbish marketing.
So you think it's some tiny thing, yeah?
Right, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not gonna. And then like half an hour later, I see like VGC tweeting new Splatoon game. I'm like, what do you mean? And then I go back to the video, and I'm like, why would you announce it this way? Like, it's so baffling. So they do make often very weird decisions when it comes to that stuff. But
they've always been like a company to pretty much just kind of like ignore like trends or traditions and basically just do their own thing.
For sure.
Yeah. So where I want to start really with the Nintendo is literally from the unboxing experience, right, of the Switch 2, which, in my opinion, very, very similar to unboxing the Switch 1, obviously.
Yeah.
Very similar packaging, all that kind of stuff. But something, for me, something that immediately became clear, at least in my opinion, is this feels like a much better built device.
Yeah.
It feels more sturdy. The way that the Joy-Cons connect with the magnets just feels so much better.
Just the click of it is just...
It's got a good weight to it as well.
Yeah, nice weight, hefty. But
it's like, for the size of the screen, like I'm looking at it now, and for the size of the screen, I actually thought it would be heavier than it is.
Right.
And it's not, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'd say it's probably, I don't know if it actually is lighter, but it feels lighter than the Steam Deck OLED. Like, it feels like, or within the range of like that kind of...
I would agree with that. I had an OLED before this, and yeah, it's certainly, there's not much between them, at least in terms of feel. Jeff's literally going to pull this out right now.
Let's do a live weight test, which is heavier.
This one, the Steam Deck.
Yeah, I thought so.
It's considerably heavier.
Wow. Is that an OLED Steam Deck or an original?
No, just the original.
Okay. Original is heavier than the OLED, but still probably around the same, I guess, really.
Yeah. But yeah, and then, you know, I was quite... So I enjoyed the handheld, like putting it together, like I said, the magnets, that was really cool. I like that they don't, because it's magnets... They don't move around, right? Because like the Joy-Cons, when they were on the rails, there was always a little bit of movement, and you were always kind of like
flush with the bottom of it, and it would really annoy me where it's like slightly up, and I'm like, but it needs to be down. So, yeah.
So in terms of build quality, I was immediately impressed because I was like, this just feels like a better built device, and it feels. I don't know, like, yes, they're only using plastic and it's not really more premium materials, but it feels more premium than the previous Switch. You know, it just feels better.
It's just like the material on the back of it, you know, just the way that it's all put together. It just, something about it has it's a higher quality tech device. And to be honest, like coming off the Wii U going into the Switch, I thought the Switch felt slick as hell back then. I was like, oh my God.
That's
like,
right.
It really
Hammond was one of the 10 people in the world that bought a Wii U.
Proud of it. One of the greatest consoles ever made.
Number 8 right here.
Hell yeah. Love the Wii U. But yeah, definitely it felt like, the original Switch to me felt like, oh, Nintendo have made an adult thing. And this is like, oh no, they've really made an adult thing this time, right?
Yes.
Like, they've really stepped it up. I think I don't know if either of you have the Pro Controller, but the Pro Controller
I really like it.
Feels so smooth. It's crazy. It is like the silkiest thing I've felt in my life. It's insane.
I actually really like it. And I had the Pro Controller for the first Switch, and this one feels much better even than that. And I quite liked the original Pro Controller.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, and like the little extra buttons they've got that you can
which are
is
really
a nice
perfectly
touch.
placed as well. Like
because they don't get in the way. I've never once accidentally activated them or anything. I think they really thought about what they were making here.
It's a perfect, like, if you're playing an RPG and you're just skipping or you're pressing text, you can hold your controller in one hand and use one of those buttons to just like a button through. It's really nice.
Yeah, and it's the
definitely.
first major platform holder to ship a controller with buttons on the back. Because Sony ended the PS4 life cycle by putting that other little thing on the back.
They did.
Making people think that PS5 was going to have it, and then they did it.
Right.
And then Xbox only has that with their premium.
You have to buy the like special controller for the other platforms, so this is the base edition. So
nice. And then the only thing that I'm still not sure I'm keen on, but it doesn't really bother me that much, is the dock itself is quite considerably bigger than the Switch One dock, because it obviously has the extra fan on the back and things like that. It's not so much about that. I find that because of the way they've designed it, getting cables in it was much more difficult than it was with my original Switch.
I had the same thing. I think it's also the original Switch had like the back panel that like flipped off but didn't remove itself. Both OLED and this have the fully removable back panel, which I don't like as much. I prefer the like
I don't.
On a hinge back panel.
I agree. And then the one other thing from a hardware perspective is, I don't know if either of you have found this, but my Switch is not very good in terms of Wi-Fi connection.
Kind of. I've definitely had.
I'm not sure. Mine's wired in.
Yeah, so I use mine mostly wired now because I have actually, because it looks amazing on the TV now, which is nice. I've been using it on the TV quite a bit. Especially, I've got like the upgraded version of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and those look so much better. But we'll talk more about games in a minute. But it's annoying because the Wi-Fi issue that I've been having, like, it does connect to Wi-Fi, and it'll be fine when it's connected, but then it's very easy for it to drop connection, or like I'll move slightly and all of a sudden the Switch has lost connection. And that makes me less inclined to use the device in handheld mode.
Right.
Because I'm like, what if I'm trying to play, Mario Kart online or something? So that is a bit annoying. But other than that, like I said, I think overall, from an actual hardware standpoint, from a look, feel, design kind of standpoint, this is a better device than the previous iterations of the Switch, I would say.
Yeah, I think overall it's just build quality is better, feels better. It has the top USB for charging, which is going to be very helpful because I'm going to train tomorrow. So if I want to charge it while playing it, then I don't have to have the underneath the Switch if I want to do that, which is very nice. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a run because this will be my first time traveling with it. Unfortunately, I don't have a travel case yet because I was like, I won't need one of those for a while. And I was like, oh shit, I'm going home. So I will have to. Oh, nice. TomTalk. Yeah, they do good ones, don't they?
Yeah,
I really need to. I think I'm going to order one when I'm back. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's the best way for me to carry this thing. I'm like, should I put it on my original Steam Deck case? And because I have the OLED as well. So I've got the carry case for the OLED. So I'm going to take my Steam Deck in that and then probably try and fit my Switch 2 into my original Steam Deck case. But yeah, if I had it out,
that might be dangerous.
Yeah, it seems okay. Like if you split it the screen and the Joy-Con separately, it seems like it will do all right. But yeah,
like this is my Steam Deck case, and it just fit right in there.
Yeah, nice. It does. It does just about work. So I'll have to do some testing on it, but. I'll get a good feel of like what it's like to travel with the Switch 2 tomorrow, because I haven't really tested the battery that much, and I've heard not great things about it overall. So
you have to turn off that over 90% thing, and then
that's true.
So now because obviously we mentioned previously a little bit about how people have been somewhat negative about the launch lineup and things like that, especially with the lack of first-party support. But how are we feeling? How are we all feeling about the launch lineup of games right now on the Switch 2?
It's not too bad. Like I've got the whole list up here. I mean, like, if you are strictly a Nintendo player, like if you don't have the other consoles, it's a great launch lineup.
Yeah.
If you have the other consoles, a lot of those big marquee titles like Cyberpunk and whatnot, you played elsewhere. So like it does lessen that little appeal. But I mean, like, you got some decent stuff, like even Fast Fusion, which is a Switch
Right.
Fast 2 launch title, and that is an extremely satisfying game, especially for people who have been wanting a new Wipeout for the longest time. But I mean, yeah, like, you know, Cyberpunk surprisingly runs on this thing extremely well. You know, and you got like Street Fighter 6, you know, having a very credible portable version, because the Steam Deck one's still fine, but in terms of like something that's exclusive to a platform, like having Street Fighter is excellent.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's, you know, there's games that launched like the same day on Switch and Switch 2, so those are kind of Switch 2 new games, because you have like Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma, which came out pretty much that day on the exact same platforms. But yeah, I mean, it's in Yakuza 0 Director's Cut as well too, and then you have the Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD remaster.
Yes.
And then you get updated versions like the Hogwarts Legacy, which is like a kind of a better version of the one that was on just Switch.
And I think that, you know, you really hit on something there just now, Jeff, when you said that if you are someone that hasn't had or doesn't have access to another console, which actually I can imagine being a somewhat considerable portion of people with Nintendo Switch devices, and potentially picking up the Switch 2, because a lot of families get these for their younger kids, right? And there's lots of games to play. Like there is lots of games that you can now play, and are they the best version of those games? No. But when you consider that actually you're able to play them in handheld mode anywhere, and, you know, I'm a big fan of Digital Foundry, and if you go and check out their videos, they're saying that this Nintendo Switch 2 in some of the games is actually performing better than, say, like a PS4, which, when you think that it's a handheld device, is quite crazy to think of, you know?
I think the big difference between this and the original Switch's launch is the fact that you have access to literally every game that came out on the Switch as well. And so for me, it's very much been like a backwards compat launch of, okay, there's not a huge amount of new stuff for me to check out, but I'm going to jump back into Splatoon 3. I bought the DLC for Splatoon 3 finally, and they did an update for that. And so it's like, great, okay, I'll get the higher quality version of the game now, running at 1080p handheld, and be able to play that roguelike DLC, which is already a lot of fun.
That's exactly what I'm doing with both Zelda games, because I never completely finished both of those. So I was like, oh, now I can actually play them at a very solid frame rate, looking better on my TV, which is the way I'd like to play them.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
you know,
so it does feel like old games are kind of the winner of the Switch 2's launch in a way.
And also, if you're like me, like I've got, you know, Bravely Default Flying Fairy here, I never played that game originally because I was kind of out of the Nintendo ecosystem for quite a while. Like, as a disabled person, as you can imagine, for a while there, they were not very friendly for people like me.
Absolutely, the worst company for it, for sure. Yeah.
And then the Switch came around, and it was like, oh, okay, this is a much more usable machine, much less reliant on motion controls and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I started getting back into stuff, and then there's kind of a few things that I've missed over the years that they're bringing in. But do you know what's funny? The main thing I want to play right now is GameCube games.
Right, Soul Calibur 2, baby. Oh, love that game.
The online's not terribly great. But
I mean, I think it's kind of what you expect from Nintendo. I think for me, like the some of the problem with some of the launch titles is like I appreciate that Fast Fusion is there, but it's another racing game alongside Mario Kart. And then we also have access to F-Zero X through the GameCube, so it does feel like things stepping on each other a little bit.
There's almost not enough variety, right?
Exactly, that's the thing. And also, like, it just kind of baffles me that like Kirby Air Riders is also coming out this year. It's like, how many racing games are we going to get for this system? It's going to be racing gamed out in a way. But yeah, you know, we can get into Mario Kart. Mario Kart's not really hitting for me personally. I think it's a bit of a disappointment. And then there's Welcome Tour, which I like as a cool thing, a fun bit of history and like education about the system, but very short. And Deltarune, which, you know, is great, but I could play it on a toaster. You know, I don't need a very expensive piece of hardware to play Deltarune. So yeah, for me, it has been like quite disappointing on the first party front. And just generally in terms of the other games out there, like I've played a lot of them. So
I think the other thing was about expectation, right? Because I think that people have been waiting for this machine for sort of 3 years at this point, really. And I think there was a big expectation that when this thing came out, we were going to get a new 3D Mario game and things like that. And obviously that hasn't happened yet. So I think that people are kind of waiting for that moment. But I made the point to someone the other day that the thing is, if you think about how Nintendo historically seem to do things, like they've come out in a period where they don't actually need many games because this is a quieter period of the year for gamers anyway, right? And they're better off holding something really big for, like, if Metroid is in November, for example, that is something that will help sell the system going into the holiday period because people are waiting for that game.
I still think that they could have delayed the launch of the Switch until the launch day of Donkey Kong, and then they would have had two like massive first party games.
I don't think they would have ever done that though, because I think part of the strategy is to not have two things at the same time, right? Like they want to have that carrot on the stick of like, well, we'll always have something new to bring people in, right? So I think unfortunately they wouldn't do that.
And I think also we were talking about a lack of variety with the offering right now, but that's kind of the thing. Nintendo aren't stupid. They know that they can space out that variety as long as they want because people will just pick up the system whenever the thing they want comes. Nintendo have reached that point. Like for example, I've always said that in the past, until I got into the media side of games, even when I was developing and things, I was very much the person that my primary reason for buying the Nintendo platform was Zelda video games, right? And so if I was still making games and not having to write and make content and things, I probably wouldn't have a Switch 2 right now. I probably would have waited for the next Zelda game. Do you know what I mean? So, but I think that's the thing. That's why Nintendo platforms have such a long tell in terms of sales, is because they are the one platform where people don't really seem to panic by it. Like with a PlayStation or even a new Xbox, it's almost like, oh, this is the new shiny thing, we must go and buy it. with Nintendo, I'm not saying they don't have that hype, because clearly they do, but I think they also have a huge section of their audience that is just willing to wait until the game that they want becomes available before they pick up the machine.
Yeah, and they also know that people like us exist who, even if Mario Kart wasn't there, if there was 0 Nintendo games, I would buy this thing still day one because I'm a moron, you know? Like, I'm stupid. So it's just what I'll do. Yeah. And they would have sold the same number of copies regardless, I think, you know? So
we've got too much disposable income, not enough brain cells.
Yeah, 0 cents, honestly. But
I do find it interesting that in most regions in the world, the Switch 2 obviously did sell out very quickly. But I was telling Jeff that here in the UK, it was actually still quite available. If you knew where to look and where to go, you could, like, even days after launch, you could still go and just pick them up. Like,
yeah, I mean, UK has traditionally not been a strong market for Nintendo, right? Like they always play second fiddle to either Sega or Sony, right? Sony are the dominant platform here, and that's usually
and
what
the
sells
funny
out.
thing is, so I didn't realize this until recent sales numbers, but I think it was Christopher Dring who said it, that in the UK is one of the only regions where even Xbox is still stronger than Nintendo in the UK.
Yeah.
And that is shocking because
it's kind of crazy.
Because I knew that Xbox was always strong in the UK, but when you hear that like the Switch 2 is Nintendo's best ever selling console at launch in the UK, and yet it's behind like 3 Xboxes and basically every PlayStation ever released, it's kind of like, oh, okay, so they don't normally do very well at all in their launch period here.
I mean, I was a very strange. I mean, me and my friends, like, no one else had Nintendo. Like, we had the GameCube. Everyone else had PS2s. Like, literally everybody else. And so, yeah, it's not a common thing at all to be.
I mean, it's a weird one for me, right? Because my first system, and I've told you this before, but my first system was the N64. Brilliant. I love that machine. I would, if they sold them now, I would still go and buy one right now.
Mine was the PS1. I wasn't a Nintendo person originally, so yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, GameCube I really liked as well. But you know, Nintendo have found their own path, and they always find their way, don't they? They always find their way. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in terms of games going forward and what they have to offer, because there's no way that all they have for this year. I know Nintendo, and there's no way that all they have really left is Donkey Kong and Metroid and a few other things.
They also have the Fire Emblem game, the Genealogy War or whatever. Like, that's apparently been done for a while.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're gonna announce and put out a Fire Emblem, because it seems like Fire Emblem is one of those series where for some reason they have just like a stack of them made already that they're like, all right, now we'll release this one. Like, apparently Engage was finished 2 years before they released it, like insane shit. Like that.
Wow, okay, yeah. So I've heard that about some of the other like Nintendo properties.
Yeah.
How I think it was one of the collections they did or something, and it was done like a year before they released it.
Yeah.
But they kept holding it back because their idea was, we will hold it back for when we don't really have anything, or for when sales slow down a bit,
in case
because
of emergency,
we know that this is something. And it's like, what other company do you know that does that? Like,
literally
we've heard of Xbox maybe starting to do that with some of their properties now because they have so many.
Right.
But they had to go and spend a lot of money to get into that position.
Right. Like, I think probably Avowed might be the only example of recent times that they're like, well, let's give this time to breathe. Let's push it to next year. We don't need to, but let's do that. Nintendo is a very strange situation in that, like, they can literally sit on projects for ages, and every other company is like, well, development's way too expensive, we've got to ship this thing, make another thing. Like, it's not feasible.
But they do, but we also know they make their things much more cheaply, right? And that's not, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but they are much more efficient with the way that they make video games. So therefore their costs are lower, so they can afford to hold on to these things. And not only that, but we don't know what percentage they're making on the hardware right now, but we know that they never sell their hardware at a loss either, which means that they consistently make money without even bringing games out.
They've got to be making a decent amount of the system, because you can get that Japanese only system for like $100 and some less.
Right.
So there's obviously
they'll be making money on that as well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I mean, they've got to be making a good amount on this as well. But they've also got their share in Pokemon for coming out later this year
of course.
too.
Yeah, of course. sorry. You say Pokemon. I think Game Freak, and then I just think how weird it was that they showed up in a non-Nintendo show.
Was bizarre, yeah. No, look, Game Freak are not above this. They've done it before. There have been Game Freak games on other platforms. I think of Tembo the Badass Elephant, which was.
But it just doesn't feel right. Like...
No, it doesn't. It does feel weird. But yeah, they're within their rights to do that. Like they're not tied to Nintendo, so yeah.
But it is funny because then I think to myself, one of my primary reasons for buying the Switch 2 at this moment in time, looking forward, is I forget the name of the game, but they have the exclusive From Software game that's going to be coming out. Yeah, like, and as someone who's recently become a fan in the last year to 18 months of From Software and Souls-like games, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, there's no way I don't buy this machine now.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a convincer for some people, for sure.
Yeah, especially all the Bloodborne kind of similarities as well, too, because
definitely
people have been wanting a sequel to that game for a long time.
Yeah.
So, what I want to ask you guys then is, what is the one game that you are waiting for personally from Nintendo?
Have to be announced or could be unannounced?
It doesn't have to be announced. It could just be something that we know is going to come at some point.
Okay. Whatever Monolith Soft is making next is my easy answer.
I feel like Jeff would say the same thing.
Sight Unseen. I will buy anything they make Sight Unseen. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was kind of hoping that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 would have had like a Nintendo Switch 2 version.
Right. I think each of those games are getting like the boost from just being on more powerful hardware with load times and stuff, but there's not a upgrade, which I'd really love to have.
They don't have a specific,
Yeah, like but those games running at 60 could be like incredible looking, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, if any company is going to use the hardware, it's going to be them. And I mean,
100%.
We've seen what they've done on the Switch already. You know, especially with a new title like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and then
they seem to be kings of optimization, right, for the platforms.
For sure. Yeah, apparently they were. I was going to say, they're part of Mario Kart World. They were involved with. Apparently,
they did. They helped out on it. Yeah, they did help out on it.
Yeah, and I mean, like they are one of the reasons why Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are as good as they are. Because
Xenoblade X walked so that Zelda could run. But those guys for sure.
I mean, that's probably like in terms of like Nintendo, in terms of like a known quantity, because like we don't know what the next Zeldas are going to be like, because like I think Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are great games. I just don't think they're good Zelda games. So like
I know what you mean. I've heard a lot of people make that argument. I wouldn't necessarily agree with it, because I do think part of being such a long-running franchise is you have to evolve and change and become different things over time.
Yeah,
I think you just have to. But
if Ubisoft made a Zelda game.
I know what you mean. I think that my thing is, where I would agree mostly with that argument is that they could have made those games and not called them Zelda, and they still would have been great games. Like, they didn't have to be Zelda games to be good games.
Yeah,
and
like,
it's a weird one.
For a known quantity, like my most anticipated right now is the Age of Calamity sequel.
Oh wow, okay.
Because like I can't remember the name of it.
Age of I don't remember either.
This is
many of those
Nintendo specialist here who doesn't
Age of Imprisonment.
Yeah, I don't give a flying fuck about Dynasty Warriors. I'm sorry. Every time they announce one of those and they're like, it's a Dynasty Warriors, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, I couldn't care less about those games.
Well, like Age of Calamity didn't really feel Dynasty Warriors, like Hyrule Warriors for sure. But Age of Calamity kind of left a lot of like what those games were. Like, it wasn't so much of like, essentially playing tag with every single base that was around the areas, because like you could play as the actual like divine beasts and just like lay waste and stuff, and they were, to me, like the best Zelda games on like Age of Calamity to me is the best Zelda game on the Switch because like it actually had a story that I cared about. Like it was just incredibly fun. But Age of Imprisonment is without a doubt my most anticipated known quantity.
Well, at least it'll run well. You know, I don't think any Zelda Warriors game has run well on any hardware it's been released on at this point.
I don't know why that Age of Calamity hasn't received like a Switch 2 patch, like in terms of because like you know
they might just drop it right before the second one comes out as like a marketing beat, is my guess. Yeah.
But it does a solid 30 now, so.
Yeah. Also, the original now runs at 60, which is very cool. So.
For me, there's a couple of things, right? And one of them is more known in the sense that we know it's actively being worked on, and we know that it's coming somewhat soon, probably within the next 12 to 18 months. And that is a new 3D Mario, because I think it's about time that they just... I just think it's time. You know?
See, this is the thing I'm skeptical of, because it seems quite clear to me that EPD Tokyo are making that Donkey Kong game, and that is the team that made Mario Odyssey. So unless they have made 2 games in the time since Odyssey, which is very viable because it's been 8 years, right? They could have been working on multiple projects, and just like you said, maybe Donkey Kong was finished 3 years ago and they've just been holding on to it at this point in time. So in that scenario, then yes, but if this is the main project they've been working on for 8 years, then you're not going.
And there's no way, right? Yeah.
Well,
you're not going to get 3D Mario otherwise. So,
I watched the Donkey Kong Direct. I had no interest in Donkey Kong Bonanza whatsoever when it was first announced. After watching that Direct, there's so much in that game that I can see why it took so long, and I'm actually eager to play it after seeing that Direct. So
I've seen everybody say that. Everyone has gone from
not this guy. I was excited immediately. I was like, "That's EPD Tokyo. It's going to be great." I was immediately in for.
But that's the thing. You're one of the people that you're so into the Nintendo ecosystem that you know and you understand. Like, right? It's kind of like me with the Xbox ecosystem. I know who's working on a game before it's even announced. And I know I can tell you, like, for example, Clockwork Revolution, right? I had a very good idea of what that game was going to be when it was first being reported as even being worked on. And yes, I know things, and that makes it easier, of course. But it's also just like using a bit of common sense of, well, this is the studio who make these kind of games, and they're now making a first-person, over-the-shoulder version of that kind of game. So it was very easy to sort of figure out what it was going to be. So I think that, for someone like you probably had an immediate interest, because it's almost like a light bulb went off in your head. Oh, this team's making it. It's kind of like what you said about Monolith, right? Like just now, right? They could literally say to you, they could flash up Monolith is and making a game, not show you anything, and be like, "It's out now," and you go on the shop.
I would just buy it. Yeah, I would. I wouldn't even check to see what it was. I just give them my money.
Oh my god, it's free. Let's do this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just ends up being some gacha garbage. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think also something that had happened was people got to preview the game, and previews were not actually very hot on it, which I was kind of curious about why that was. I was like, that seems weird. Why is people not connecting with this thing? But I'm very curious to play it myself.
Yeah, that's fair. But for me, outside of Mario, I do want to talk about what else I've been playing on the system, because this is another reason I actually think the system isn't getting the credit it deserves, really. And so I've been playing Yakuza 0. There's the director's cut version.
Hell yes.
With the new, like, kind of rush mode, which is weird. But it's Yakuza, and if you know me or Naman, we're going to play those games wherever they are.
Ironically, still haven't played Yakuza 0. So.
Oh my god. You come on, this is the perfect time for you.
I know.
But what I wanted to say, and Jeff sort of alluded to it earlier when he was talking about Cyberpunk, but it's good to see, and I don't know how long it will last, but I'm glad that we are seeing third-party support right now for the machine.
Yeah.
And we know that going forward, for example, IO Interactive's next game, the James Bond game, is coming to Switch too. And we know that like Xbox and many of their studios have already said they're going to be
Call of Duty has to come to Switch too, otherwise the courts are going to go after them. So
it legally does.
Legally has to, yeah.
Which is interesting.
Which side tangent, by the way, I think the worst one last thing I've ever seen in my entire fucking life is the end of that Xbox press conference where it's like, oh, this is Milo Ventimiglia from Heroes. This could be an interesting game. And then the reveal it's Call of Duty. I was like, I think that's the most annoyed I've ever been.
So I clicked about halfway through because of certain things that were happening in the trailer.
Okay.
But I'm kind of in two minds. As we're on the tangent, I'm kind of in two minds on that end. Because I think that for people like us, yes, that end sucked. Because at the end of the day, we know Call of Duty is coming every year.
Right.
And it doesn't need to have that position in a showcase ever to be a big thing, right? You could have given that to... You actually could have given that to anything else in the show pretty much. And it would have come across completely differently. However, I think that because we are who we are, we forget that Call of Duty is a major, major thing. And so that is probably the big... Overall, even though we might not like it, that's probably the biggest reveal they had in the entire show. In many ways.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think the thing, it's not, I wouldn't call it a reveal because Call of Duty comes out every year. So you know it's an inevitability, right? It's going to happen regardless. I would also say that this is not the audience for that. The people who care about Call of Duty, they don't even know an Xbox Showcase exists, right? They just live out there, live their lives and buy Call of Duty every year. They have no interest in the ecosystem or any of that stuff. So I think this showcase is built for people who care about games and who care about the industry, and nobody cares about Call of Duty in that way. So I think it was just pitched wrongly in terms of the audience. Would be watching that show.
Like it's kind of like when EA used to have their little showcases, right? And it's like
they're going to interview Pele for 40 minutes, you know.
Play them, but it's like those people that play those games don't watch these shows.
They have no idea it exists, right? Because they're just normies living real life, you know, not being sickos on the internet.
So I do agree in that sense, but like I said, I just think that unfortunately, and this is my major criticism of Xbox and Microsoft right now, I'm not against a lot of what they're doing because I think it's positive for the industry in many ways. But I think that part of what they're doing means they've become much, much more business focused. And them having Call of Duty there felt like them saying, yes, this show is for the gamer, but is also for the investors, sort of thing. It's also, you know, it's, The
one thing I was thinking of, like, you know, with the next Call of Duty is we don't know when they got switched to dev kits because they are a platform competitor. Right?
Yeah. So we did hear, and I can't remember where it is because I don't have it in front of me right now, but recently in the news, someone from Activision did confirm that they are actually working directly with Nintendo to get Call of Duty onto the system. Right. So I'm assuming that Activision might be one of the few third-party companies that had early access to dev kits.
I would definitely
not many do, but I would imagine that they probably were.
I think they are going to want to ship the Black Ops 7. I think they're going to want to sim ship it on Switch too, if possible. So
I think they will.
But I guess other third-party games, right, that are potentially coming to the system, I do think we're going to see a waterfall eventually. Like the problem is that, like you said, it was very close to the chest up until launch, and not that many studios had access. But as soon as the floodgates open and dev kits are available for people, we're going to see a huge influx of third-party stuff.
So my question for you, Naman, as the Nintendo expert here, though, because one thing I noticed with the original Switch is there was a period of time where it actually had a lot of third-party support.
Yes.
And then that died out over time. How long do you think the third-party support will last for the Switch 2?
It's a really good question. I think up until the competitors move to another generation at the very least, right? Which is probably another 4 years at minimum, is my guess. I don't know. I don't know when we're going to get a PS6, but it feels like this generation is going to go on for a really, really long time.
I mean, I think generations are changing, to be quite honest, because I think that each one of these platforms will now be on a completely different cadence.
Yeah.
Because after, Nintendo have just brought out their machine, but we just saw Xbox release a video the other day talking about a brand new partnership with AMD to make chips not just for console but for other devices as well.
Right.
And the way they've been talking about that, and people have been pointing out, like, based on their history, the last time, every single time they speak about one of these chips is almost exactly a year before they release their next piece of hardware. So are they just going to release their next bit of hardware at the end of next year?
See,
and it doesn't really matter for them either.
Though. Like releasing like a platform like well before your competitor, and then the competitor goes like, "Oh well, we can just change this." And
I think it is in some ways, but I think that for Xbox in particular, what you have to remember is they haven't directly competed strongly for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And the one time in their history that they did was when they came out ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, I'll also say that, like, they also don't really care. Like, it's very clear they don't care about the box anymore. The box is like, okay, if you people who are like real Xbox fans, you'll buy it. But like,
the funny thing is, even the way they're speaking about the box, it genuinely does sound like at this point, maybe the next console is just an easier to use PC.
Yeah,
that
totally.
Almost sounds like what they're saying, because even in this video they did, I don't know if either of you have seen it, but Sarah Bond's in the video and she says the next Xbox is going to ensure that Windows is the best gaming platform. And it's like, why use that terminology in particular if you're not doing something with it?
Totally, and they have the new OS for the handheld as well. Like, there seems like a unification coming.
So if all of this stuff's working together, and don't get me wrong, it might be a masterstroke from them, right? Of if you can deliver a more plug and play PC experience to the people that would traditionally be on console, and maybe they'd like to be on PC but can't afford it, then you might actually find quite a big audience there for that type of product. Like, I know that if this next Xbox is essentially a PC and I can load up Steam and access my 400 games that I own on Steam, I'll be getting an Xbox just to have in the other room in my house.
Right, it's just a convenient access point for those games instead of like hooking a PC up to it properly. So I think their strategy is just like being everywhere and not really caring where people are. And so you're right. Like, we could be in this weird place where they are putting out boxes, but in a weird cadence.
Makes me think of a Nintendo related question though, because Nintendo has for a very long time walked to the beat of their own drum, right? When it came to crossplay, when it came to all these things, they do it. They're kind of like the very extreme version of Sony. Sony do things when they have to because they're worried about falling behind, and Nintendo sort of do things when it gets to the point where they have no other choice.
Yeah.
Naman, do you foresee at any point in the future, it could be 10 years from now, but do you ever think we see a situation where Nintendo games are on some form of hardware that isn't Nintendo hardware?
No, the company will go screaming and dying before it ever does that. I think of all the companies, Nintendo are the one who are the most obstinate when it comes to that sort of thing. And I think, honestly...
But they sort of have to be, right?
Yeah, but I think I think, honestly, they will be the only console platform left at the end of the day. I think all the others will move to will eventually be in a place where everything gets streamed through the internet, right? And Nintendo will be the last ones to do that, because they just are, they're behind the times, first of all, and so they'll be late to the party as always with it. But they will also just not want to give up the heavy big percentage that they benefit from when they put their games on their own hardware, and how much money they are able to make through that. And because of the strength of their IP, they don't have to give it up. And
also, not only that, but the point I've made in their favor before is that because their games cost so much less to make, they don't have any pressure to put their games anywhere else.
Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
The likes of PlayStation, like even PlayStation admitted it on their earnings call the other day. Their CEO, Sony's CEO, was asked what they thought about kind of the industry moving to a more monthly active user-based society, if you will, and less of a focus on just sales. And then in that, they were asked about kind of Xbox's strategy and how that's changed and all those kind of things. And I am paraphrasing, but the CEO said something along the lines of, we actually agree with their strategy and thinking, but we are not yet in a place where we have to change what we're doing immediately. And when I read that, I was like, so that means that even they're admitting that eventually they're going to have to put their stuff in more places.
Yeah.
They're just not in a desperate situation where they have to do it right now, right?
Another way of kind of showing that Xbox for almost like the last decade has been ahead of everyone, even if no one's agreed with them.
Right.
Because when the Xbox One was first launched, everyone's like, this is the worst idea possible. And now that's literally where we are right now.
Yeah. But with that one, it was a weird one, because with that one, maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't ever think it was people saying it's a bad idea. I think it was more of like a pushback because they were trying to force people towards something they weren't ready for yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that can kind of be the same thing.
Yeah, true. But yeah, it's interesting because I agree with Naman that, you know, Nintendo feels like the last gunslinger, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like they make just so much money that, like, okay, any other game, right? If it had an 8-year development cycle, you'd be like, oh my god, that must be development hell.
It's like Grand Theft Auto 6.
Right, yeah, and you're like, well, they must have spent millions and millions. That must have cost forever and ages. Mario Kart World is a game that had an 8-year development cycle, and that didn't bother them because the previous Mario Kart sold 70 million units, and so funding a project like that is you don't have to worry about funding that team for 8 years because like you're selling so much that it doesn't really matter, you know.
So I'm now going to ask you a controversial question. Because I do believe this about Nintendo to some extent. Do you think that the reason Nintendo's IP and brand is so strong to a certain extent is just because they've been around the longest?
No, I don't think so. I do think it's a fundamental quality thing. And I think, you know, one of the things that people have talked about recently is like, what is the real effect of layoffs, right? Obviously, it's terrible. But the real effect of it is that you lose knowledge and experience and cohesion of a team. And the fundamental thing about Nintendo is that they have people who have worked there for 30 years.
For so long.
People like, you know, Takuza and Miyamoto and Kono. Like, they are people who started the company in their 20s or 30s or whatever, and now are in their 60s and have a way of working with each other and understanding a fundamental, like, they know how to make video games in a certain way, and that is why the quality is always so high from Nintendo's output, right?
So I'll ask you the question a slightly different way. Similar question, but slightly different way, just to see. Do you think then, would you say that, because because me and Jeff often have this conversation, and I also have it with our friend Keith Mitchell from the Outer Haven. Do you believe that there is any point in time where the Nintendo fan base let Nintendo get away with things that other fan bases of other platforms wouldn't let their platforms get away with?
What do you mean by get away with? Like, are they like not calling them out? You mean, is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah. Like, are the fan base easier on them? Because, is the expectation different, I guess? Are they held to a different standard, but not always in a positive way?
Well,
yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, Jeff.
To kind of add on to that, which might make the question a little bit easier, is when everyone goes, Nintendo's just going to Nintendo.
Right. Like there's nothing you can do about it way.
So people kind of just accept it. Yeah, people just kind of accept it because Nintendo. Yeah.
Right. I think that's the thing, right? I think ultimately as a big Nintendo fan, I'm the biggest critic of Nintendo you'll ever find, because people who love them the most are the ones who find the most annoyances and critiques and criticisms. And I do find that my perspective on it is I can be annoyed as I like about baffling decisions like charging for Welcome Tour. What the actual fuck are you doing? Like,
that's ridiculous, right?
Decision, doing things like that.
Ultimately, you can't do anything about it, right?
No, also I'm stupid because I fucking bought Welcome Tour, didn't I? But they do make baffling decisions that I'm always like.
So here's Nintendo? One. Here's actually a really good example. They managed to resell people the same game over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Although to be fair, the games industry is doing that across the board now. Like, how many times has The Last of Us been re-released?
No, it's definitely doing that more now. But my point is that when Nintendo do it, I never really hear anyone complaining about it. When the other platforms or other publishers do it, every single person complains.
I think there is a Stockholm syndrome to that with Nintendo, especially, right? And there's also that's nostalgia tied up with it also. And so I think some of the more modern examples don't have that to fall back on. I'm someone who never rebuys that stuff. Like, I buy a game once.
I don't know how true that is. You're such a big Nintendo guy.
But I have a thing. If I own I see it as a waste of money personally. Like, I refused to buy Mario 3D World on Switch because I bought that on Wii U. I should have been able to just buy Bowser's Fury. I'm not buying a whole fucking video game just to play Bowser. Like, I really want to play Bowser's Fury, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So
that is funny. Yeah. No, I admire you for that approach, because not everybody would have that for sure.
No.
But because, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say there's a massive problem with the Nintendo fan base or anything like that.
Sure.
But I do, as someone who's a more casual fan of Nintendo, I've always kind of had this feeling that because they've been around a long time and because people have a lot of nostalgia for a lot of their IPs and things like that, there's always that conversation of like, do some of their games artificially kind of get rated higher by people?
100%,
because of nostalgia, rather than because of actual quality.
Right, it's the same with Rockstar, right? Why like the highest rated games of all time, Mario, Zelda, and Rockstar games?
Absolutely,
there's a built-in extra. You just get an extra thing for the prestige of it, right? And I do think that's true to some degree, but I also think that like the reason people are very forgiving of Nintendo is because they've made some of the best games ever made, right? And they are very consistent in that. Every generation they put out games that are exceptional.
And also to be fair to Nintendo, when they really, really fuck up, they will usually rectify something.
Right.
Like, although I have seen that people have apparently been having stick drift with some of their Joy-Cons already, which is interesting because they said they'd fix that issue.
Yeah.
Clearly you haven't.
A couple days of the system being out, people are already like, I have stick drift. Like,
Jeff, you said we could talk about this, but the eShop, my experience, I think that's one of the good things about the Switch 2 so far. the eShop has been dramatically improved in terms of its feature set and its load times, and like now you can go into your wish list and see what's on sale and then order it by discount. Like I don't need to use Deku deals anymore. Like it's crazy. Like it's so much more streamlined.
Definitely
and even
better.
The games will say if they're Switch 2 compatible as well, and they'll also say Switch 2 compatible, but then below it it'll say this title recently had an update to make this happen. Like there's nice little details.
What I do like as well about the eShop and about Nintendo's approach in general with the Switch 2 is it seems like they're finally getting to the point where they're willing to learn lessons from the competition, where they're willing to look at the competition and go, oh, okay, you actually do this better than us. We're going to kind of take that and put it into our own little way. Like a lot of the eShop improvements are things that have existed on other storefronts for a very long time, right? There is something we haven't talked about that I've tried a bit, but I don't know if either of you have, and I really like, and it's the game chat feature.
Yes. Shocking.
That's so good.
It's shocking how much I like it. Like, it's a thing that everyone made fun of. And, like, one of my friends, so he lives in America, and it's very rare that we get a chance to, like, chat at all. And it's hard to, like, schedule, like, playing stuff, right? And I was just, like, playing some stuff on Switch 2 on, like, a weekend. And I get a notification on my phone being like, oh, your friend wants to game chat. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. And so we just hop in, and we're just chatting immediately, handheld mode through the system, and we're like both playing different things. We were chatting about it, and then we're like, oh, what should we? Oh, let's try Soul Calibur 2. And so we jump into Soul Calibur 2, and we're doing weapon. So we fight against each other a few times, and then we do Weapon Master mode, and we're like trading off controlling as each other. Like you can swap who's in control, and so like we're doing challenges on Weapon Master, and then we're like, oh, we should play Pokemon Stadium like we did when we were kids, right? And so we hop into Pokemon Stadium on the N64 app, and it's like being in the room again, like as kids, like just playing a game together. And I thought it worked surprisingly well, and with the ability to see each other's screens as well is super nice.
What I like about the game chat feature is that obviously you can use the webcams, which is why everybody made fun of it, I think, because it was like, who's actually going to do that? Who's going to, but the thing I like is you can just put your screen back into full screen mode if you want.
Yeah, totally.
and just play like, it's just like you're in a voice chat. Like, it's a really good voice chat system. The only part of it I didn't like, and I get it because it's Nintendo, so I get it, don't get me wrong, but I have to add somebody on Nintendo, right? So I have to add them using the friend code. I then have to basically approve them to be in game chat with me, even though I've already added them to my friends list.
I think if you can approve automatically when you first start the system and be like, everyone on my friends list, they can be approved automatically.
Okay.
But I guess if you add someone new, then you might have to redo that potentially.
I think that could be an issue for like streamers that add a whole bunch of people to play Mario Kart or something.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So I kind of I have that small issue with it, but I was genuinely shocked by how well it worked. Like you just press the button, invite your friend, and it just works.
Yeah,
and like you don't have to connect a microphone. Like I'll be playing on my TV and my Switch is over to my left and my friend can still hear me fine. He doesn't hear himself coming through the TV.
So my favorite thing about game chat is so I posted, I'll give you the link to this Blue Sky post.
Nice. Let me have a look.
So basically what you can do is you can do speech to text. And me and my friend were online playing together, right? And we realized that if we swore, it would pick it up. And I was like, that's the most non-Nintendo thing of all time. But it just leads to these very funny situations of like, you can be chatting and like have this kind of like text log of what you have said, and then you like look back at it and it's just very, very funny. I just found that obviously it's an accessibility feature and it's very good they have it.
Of course. I
found it very funny. It's just a fun thing to do, and it's almost like the way they set it up is like they have it on the side like it's a YouTube like live stream text chat. And so like when I was playing, I was like, this feels like I'm just playing like a YouTube live stream. It's very, very funny. I think so.
I really like that. but I do think you hit on something, Nam, and I want to kind of explore it a little bit more for conversation's sake. You said that game chat feels like being back in the room with somebody, right? It feels like being back there with someone, playing a game together, whatever. So my question is, how have Nintendo managed to achieve that when every other platform that has a chat system and has had a chat system for many, many years doesn't garner that same feeling? Because I actually completely agree with you.
Yeah, I think part of it is the stuff that we were playing was the classic game stuff, right? So there is a sense of nostalgia when we're playing Soul Calibur.
So it brings back those memories as well.
You totally, right? So like playing Soul Calibur and playing Pokemon Stadium together is like, that's an immediate cheat code for nostalgia. But even with a game like Mario Kart, that's a new game, I think inherently Nintendo have always been about social play, right, with their games and having people play games together. And so they build things into their games to, help facilitate that. And I know that Mario Kart has the whole like webcam face thing as well you can do with people. But I think also it's just the sharing of the screen stuff as well. I know Discord does this as well, but just the ease of having it as part of the system. There's no extra wires. There's no extra like.
And it's just so easy to use, right?
Right. I could be like literally lying on my couch downstairs, and my friend just like jumps on. I'm just holding this handheld, and I can see his screen on the handheld. Like there's a cozy, like it doesn't feel like a tech thing that you would do. Like to do Discord with friends, you have to be on a PC and like headphones on, microphone out. Like I'm going to stream this to you, have my second monitor. Like there's a locked in nature to that. Is the casual friendly nature of the way it's done on Switch 2 that makes it feel like nostalgic in that way, I think,
That makes a lot of sense, actually. It does make a lot of sense. So obviously I know that you have to go soon, and I do want to speak about some things that are not Nintendo. So as we kind of wrap up this section, has anybody else got anything to add about the Switch 2 that we've been feeling or haven't spoken about so far?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on Mario Kart, actually, because we haven't really gone into that specifically.
Yeah. So
I mean, I like it.
I like Mario Kart. I like the open world part of it is kind of completely like you don't have to do it. It's I feel like that's a little bit of a missed opportunity in some sense. But I also like that they're giving people the choice. It's not like they've just made it an open world game and they've gone, well, now this is where it is. Sorry, do you know what I mean? They kind of give you the choice. The costumes is cool, but I do think it's weird that not everyone has at least one costume.
Well,
I think
Mario has like 15 costumes. Baby Rosalina or whatever, or Baby Daisy will have like 5 or 6 costumes. The Koopa Troopas will have 4 or 5 costumes, but Dry Bones doesn't have one fucking costume.
I guess Dry Bones count as an enemy type because you have the enemies. Right, so those guys don't have costumes at all, do they? Like the ones that you get from Magic.
But I mean, the Koopa Troopa is no different in design than Dry Bones.
Right, it's very weird that. Also, like, I initially only played as Pauline and Donkey Kong for whatever reason, and both of them only have one outfit, so I was very confused. I was like, why am I not getting more outfits? But I think it's inevitable that when Donkey Kong releases, now we know with Pauline and stuff,
they'll have more.
They're gonna it'll be like update to Mario Kart, you get more costumes for these guys.
So I've been using Shy Guy. I don't know why.
Okay, interesting pick.
Why.
Yeah,
and he has 2 costumes, I think.
Shy Guy gets 2 costumes and Dry Bones gets 0.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I like the game. I like that the tracks are. Firstly, I think it's the best looking that Mario Kart's ever been. That's like an easy one. But I also like the shortcuts and the weird little things you can do on the tracks. It just feels a lot more dynamic, and I know that some people have complained about kind of how hectic it can make things in that regard, and I do agree. And you've got the Knockout Tour, which is like Mario Kart on steroids, essentially.
It's Real Mario Kart.
But I think there is something here. I don't know if Nintendo normally do this, but I would like to see them do some tuning to the items and things like
Well, the
that.
feather is useless.
Yeah, but not even just that. Like, I've had races where I'll be hit by an item, and before I can even move again, I'm hit by another item immediately. And it's like, I feel like that shouldn't be possible. I feel like there has to be, like, for example, I was in a race with two of my friends from the Outer Haven, and we were doing like knockout tour, and we're in the last four, right? I'm first on the final lap. One of them comes past me, hits me with a red shell, right? I'm like, okay, I can make this up. I got time. The second one comes past me immediately before I start driving again. Hits me with something else. I think it was like the boombox, like, and then I'm like, okay, because I was already stunned, so that thing's just stunned me even longer, and it's like, and now I've got no chance, and it's like, but the quick succession as to which that happened was like it in any other game that wouldn't be possible because I wouldn't have been able to be hit that quickly straight after because I still would have been in like the recovery animation, if you will.
Right. It also feels worse because there are more players, and so when you get knocked, you inevitably get passed by more people than you ever have before in a Mario Kart game. So it feels more punishing when you do get into that situation of, I'll call it, being Mario Karted, right? Being Mario Karted in this game is exponentially worse than any other game in the series, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, Naman, maybe you know, but do Nintendo ever have a history of kind of, patching these things, improving them?
Sometimes they do. I think so. The item balance in original Mario Kart 8 on Wii U was really bad, and I was not a fan of that game as a result. I think it actually had significant issues. When Mario Kart 8 was put out on Switch, they actually improved that quite a bit in terms of they added the double items, but they also just made the balance a lot better. And so I think they made a change when they ported it over. But in terms of like changes like this, I think they're more likely to do it these days than they were in the past, but I wouldn't put my hat on it as like a thing that they will respond to directly. So yeah.
Yeah, the patch will just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But no, I quite enjoyed it. Like even like the little side activities, like there's still a couple that I'm trying to wrap my head around in terms of like the wall bouncing and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I know that, Jeff, you were saying to me, because you said to me how, we were talking about the outfits quite quickly after we were both playing it, and it was like, how does Dry Bones not have any outfits?
It makes no sense.
Like, yeah, that was weird. But Naman, I do want to know, because obviously you said you weren't as high on it, and we've discussed it a little bit there.
Sure.
But is there a specific reason that it's not really clicking with you right now?
Yeah, I think if it was one thing, I think I'd be okay. But for me, it's almost every single aspect of the game is disappointing to me. The free roam mode is like completely wasted potential, right? Like when they first announced it, I was like, oh, we could get Mario Kart Forza Horizon here, right? Like they could really do a cool thing.
It could have been really cool.
Like if they had done that right, we're talking about like one of maybe the best games ever made here. Like, and the way they fumble the bag so hard on like, there is no structure to it at all. Like there is no reason for me to like the reward for finding stuff is stickers like that you barely see on your cart, and there's like a million of them. Like it's really poorly structured as a reward structure. No direct kind of like incentive for doing any of that stuff, and no tracking features to properly track what you have and haven't done.
And I don't know about you, but it almost came across to me like they had an idea and then they got scared by the scope of it or something.
I don't know. Like it feels like one of those Nintendo made a decision for some reason that they made sense to them, but to nobody else. And I think that's a classic Nintendo move. Like I think they were like, so Breath of the Wild does this thing where it doesn't put anything on your map. How about we do that? as well. But fundamentally, the structure of a driving game and how you explore in that is so different, and the incentive structure is so different that
and like you said, even if there was just a way to track the rewards and things, that would make a huge difference. Like that one thing.
Those challenges don't show up on the mini map, and there could be a small little check mark.
Yeah. And but okay, in this game you unlock costumes by randomly eating food. What if, I don't know, wild idea, you go to the DK course and DK's there and it's like, we're going to do a race and there's going to be like a challenge aspect to it. He's going to have like bananas coming behind him and you have to race against him and then you beat him, and by beating him you get a DK costume, right? Like there's such a clear and obvious way that they could have structured this world around races and races between races and having interesting challenges and things that are built into the way in which you race and make that part of the exploration, and they just failed on every single front. So that is a huge disappointment. I just don't like Grand Prix. I don't like that most of the race is a straight line. And that is, to be frank, most races in this game is 2 laps of a straight line, then you do 1 lap of a course. And it doesn't feel like there's any interesting things to learn. When you go online and do it, you aren't really learning anything because you could go from one course to another course from any direction. So there's no inherent internalization of what the courses are. Knockout Tour, you can't play with a friend with other people. Like you simply can't.
I know, that's weird, right? Yeah, that's
me and Valley were like, let's play Knockout Tour with other people and let's get into a lobby together. And they don't let you. Like,
no,
it's
you can only play against AI, right?
Yeah, you can play against AI with your friend, or you can go into a random lobby on your own. But you can't go together into a random lobby. But you can go together into a random lobby if you're doing Grand Prix. It's just like baffling decision making that does.
It's a weird choice.
Yeah,
it is a weird choice.
I think that all those things compounded. I'm I've played maybe 13, 14 hours of it, and I have zero incentive to go back to Mario Kart World at this point. I really just don't care much about it, which is a huge shame because I think it had the potential to be the best Mario Kart ever made, and they just kind of messed it up at every single juncture for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. I think that's, everything you're saying, I can see where it comes from. So I think that's a very, very valid opinion to have. But let's close this part by kind of summing up our thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2 overall, right? So this is current game lineup, hardware, like every single aspect of it, right? And what I want you to do is give it a rating out of 10. Okay, so I'll go first. For me, right now, this feels like at this current moment in time, I would probably give the Switch 2 a 7.5 out of 10. I think this is a very good system, but there's lots of room on the software side for improvement and for more to be offered.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably be like I would describe this as a 7.5 out of 10 console launch. Very good, but a little bit underwhelming in some ways. Jeff, how would you feel?
I don't know. Like I got what I wanted out of what this product is, and for me, it's like I never really rate a console by its launch, just because those are titles that people are struggling to even get out for that amount of time. Sometimes, they're. I mean, you take a look at like some launch titles, like the PS3 had one of the worst launch lineups I've ever seen. So like,
and I also think weirdly, launch lineups are looked back on differently than how people feel about them in the moment, right? So like, I know, for example, I'm quite a strong defender that I actually think the Xbox One had a stronger launch lineup than the PS4.
Right, son of Rome, shout out.
But because of other issues around that platform, I think people sort of ignored their lineup, right? They ignored what they actually had.
Rising 3 or whatever.
Because there were wider issues with the platform at the time. But I think that even that launch lineup is looked back on differently than people thought about it at the time.
Yeah, I think GameCube is a great example of that. We just did a recent episode where we ranked the launch lineups, and GameCube actually came out on top, despite at the time everyone complaining about Luigi's Mansion and not being a Mario game, right? So,
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. But
that's
no,
fair.
for me, it's like, I see what the console is capable of. I mean, Cyberpunk's port is proof positive of that. So for me, it's like I'm probably sitting about an 8. Like, I love the hardware build. The eShop is finally fucking usable.
Nice.
Like, it's a really nice console to hold. I mean, like the kickstand works as like a grip almost as well too, which is really nice. And again, there's a lot of really amazing games that are coming out that are known quantities, like Apex Imprisonment, for example. And I mean, like, I'm interested in Donkey Kong for the first time ever.
Nice. Nice.
I've never been a fan of Donkey Kong at all.
That's fair.
And
That's fair.
no, like, for me, it's like, yeah, I'd probably be sitting about an 8 for it, because again, like, I think the hardware lineup that was available here is incredibly strong. It's just, sure, it's games I've played already, but I'm not ranking the system just on my personal taste.
I agree.
I'm ranking the system on what's capable to an audience that is looking for this. And so, like, you've got Street Fighter 6, which is one of the best fighting games literally ever made, like, available day one on the console with a DLC pack that has all of the launched characters already. So I mean, imagine taking this to Evo and just sitting down and having a couple matches with people. Like, you don't have to lug around equipment. So there's a lot of really, really interesting stuff. And I mean, yeah, there's obviously, the elephant in the room of there not being a lot of first party titles available for it, or upgrades to maybe some of the right games and stuff. But all that stuff will come. So, like, part of my score kind of goes into the potential of what I see in this device.
Yeah. No, that completely makes sense. So, Naman, as our resident Nintendo guy, if you were to rate it out of 10 right now, how would you be feeling?
Yeah, I guess rating my experience is like, how much have I been playing and how much am I excited to play it? And I would say a lot less than other Nintendo console launches, generally speaking. And part of that is the iterative nature of it. It's not a new system, really. It's an iteration on what's come before.
System, right? Yeah.
And I think, had Valve not gone and made the Steam Deck, and I had not experienced that in the intervening years, this would be a lot more exciting, because it would be, wow, finally I can handheld.
It would have been a bigger step up, right?
For sure. It would be like, whoa, look how good these games look on a handheld system. Can you believe it?
But you've already seen that.
Yes, I can believe it, because I've had this device that has done it for however many years now. So I think in that sense, like, and again, I kind of agree with Jeff of like, it's hard to like rank a system at launch, because I buy it because for the next 8 years, it's going to be a device I use, and I'm going to play every Nintendo game and like all that sort of stuff. But then we're just talking about like experience of what I've had from the system. 6.5 probably for me. Like I'm like kind of lukewarm on it overall. Like I'm glad that it's here. Haven't talked about Welcome Tour, but I think that's the mouse stuff in that is actually kind of exciting. Like, I think mouse stuff going forward is going to be exciting.
I haven't even tried any of the mouse stuff.
Mouse is great, like super precise.
I mean, I just refuse to buy Welcome Tour. That's why.
Yeah, no, totally. But like, there's a mini game in Welcome Tour that you can move around with the analog stick, like a character moving, and then you aim your Joy-Con mouse to shoot balloons out the sky. And as I was playing that, I was like, oh, this is how Prime 4 is going to feel when I play Prime 4. So kind of prepping you a little bit for that potential future, which is nice. But yeah, for me, it's the promise of what's to come, and there is a lot of stuff I'm interested in, obviously, and Nintendo are always going to put out new stuff that I want to play. So Prime 4 is going to be big, Donkey Kong's going to be big for me. So yeah, it's a hard thing to rank, but I think by the end of this year, I'll be a lot hotter on Switch 2 generally.
Nice. Well, we'll definitely get you back on at some point to have a little update in your thinking on the machine.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get you on for a Prime 4 review episode or something.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That would be a nice one. But I want to end by moving away from Nintendo for the last sort of 10 minutes here to talk about anything else we've been playing outside or away from Nintendo. So Naman, as you're the guest, why don't you go first?
This is a great question. What have I been playing? I've been playing Spelunky for the first time ever.
Okay.
It's kind of like my before bed game. Playing it on Steam Deck, and it's a, I think my journey with roguelikes has been very interesting because if you asked me 6 years ago, I would have said I fucking hate roguelikes. That's not my genre, not my thing at all. And now I think they're maybe my top 3 favorite genre of all time. So
That
it's
almost sounds like me with turn-based games.
right,
Like,
yeah. It's been a big turnaround on it. And so like I just never played some of the classics, right? I've never played Binding of Isaac, I've never played Spelunky, and I'm like, okay, well, like I got into roguelikes with the more roguelite type stuff, like Hades, where it's like progression and you keep things in your runs. Spelunky is a pure roguelike in that you don't keep shit. You learn what's going on and you just take that knowledge going forward and you use that knowledge to get better and progress. And there is shortcuts you can unlock, which is nice, so you don't have to redo the first level again and again. But I think the joy about it is like it's a game where you are tempted to go quickly, but doing that is at your own peril because of the myriad dangers that lurk in these spaces that you can accidentally okay, I'm going to drop down here. Shit, there was an arrow that came across and fucking hit me in the head. And like, oh, for God's sake, I should have seen that thing is there because I know that I shoot out arrows. And like, okay, I'm going to try and trigger it by throwing a rock up. But the rock bounces wrong and then the rock hits my head and I take damage because of the rock. Like, there's systems in that game that work together to create such funny deaths. Like, I've died in so many stupid, funny ways in Spelunky.
that's cool. I've never played this. I might have to try it.
Yeah, it is really fucking difficult. Like, it is so challenging, but it's one of those games where you'll die after 3 seconds. You'll be like, right, straight in again. Let's do another run immediately. And, you'll have a really, really good run, and then you'll die to something stupid, and you're like, right, back on the horse. Like, there's a real satisfaction to learning the space, learning the enemies, and understanding what they will do and how to best counter them. And, like, always have something in your hand, like a rock or a barrel or whatever, to throw at something, or have a way to trigger traps, and know the best approaches for like dropping down a shaft, like make sure you pan the camera down so you don't fall and like go and take damage from falling and things like that. Like your resources, you have bombs and you have ropes you can use, so like trying to figure out the best way to manage that stuff is really interesting. And yeah, I've only played like total of like 6 hours, but it's like every night before bed, it's like half an hour of Spelunky or 20 minutes of Spelunky, slowly building up that tolerance and that understanding of it. So, yeah, that's really good. And then I've also been trying to get myself through the biggest JRPG series of all time, the Trails series. So I finished the original Trails in the Sky, first chapter, few months ago, kind of in anticipation of the remake coming out. And I mean, that game's fantastic. It's a really excellent RPG, great characters and storytelling. And I started the second one as well. So yeah, that's going to be a long journey, but those games are very, very rich in terms of their story. And they are in a lot of ways what people call like the kind of like the longest running single story in video games in a way. So yeah, excited to do more of that. But yeah, I think that's mainly what I've been playing. Just kind of jump in between different things and checking. I played a lot of Neckfest demos actually. That's what I did. That's most of my time.
There were some very good demos on there.
Yes.
Yeah,
those are really good ones.
A few played a little bit of that. What is it? The Last of Us or
The Last of Us?
No,
a little indie game called The Last of Us.
Yeah, no. I got the name wrong.
Okay.
Hell is Us. There we are.
Hell is Us.
Yeah,
that's being marketed quite heavly.
I mean, that's the new version of The Last of Us.
Yeah, and the 2 minutes I played is already better.
Yeah, I played a Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, the demo for that.
Yeah, I have
that kicks
the demo
so much ass. Oh my god, that game is fantastic. So yeah, I played that and I was like, right, I'm immediately buying this when it comes out. So that was good. But yeah, just kind of jumping between a lot of demos recently. That's the main thing, non-Nintendo.
Fair. Well, Jeff, we're running out of time a little bit. So what's one thing that you've been playing that you would really like to speak about?
Well, the main 2 things I can't. Just trying to go through on the list here. I guess kind of in a unique position. I played just a little bit of the Hunter Call of the Wild. They have the Alberta DLC that is out right now, and I live in Alberta, So,
nice.
So Jeff may or may not be in the game as a wild animal.
Yeah, who could say?
I mean, I don't know if I'm the only person who's reviewing it that actually lives in Alberta. I have no idea. But no, I checked it out. I ended up getting codes for it, and it has some of the most satisfying like ATVing I think I've ever played in a game. It's better than any game that is strictly just ATVs. Like
That's crazy to say.
yeah,
Like
the handling is so nice. The sound is like absolutely perfect. Like it just reminded me of when I used to go quadding. Like it just has that exact same appeal to it. And
that's cool.
no, I mean it's not a game that I would typically play because I don't really play hunting games or anything like that. But
Yes.
I wanted to try it just because like again, I live in Alberta, so I mean this is, you know, the representation of my province is, you know, this is like the first game. I don't know. Like it's hard to say exactly. Whereas you get big cities like New York and London, they get games pretty much like once a
Well, it's
year.
the same as I'm always waiting. I'm always waiting for a game that's set in Bristol because Bristol is actually, as Naman will probably know, a very historic place within the UK. But we've never had a game set here ever,
Well, you're
and
going to
yet
be
there's
getting
so many
a
cool
Hunter
things
Call
you
of the
could do.
Wild, Bristol hunting, and
Yeah, that's what we need. Just go on the streets of Bristol and just find some people. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. I like that. No,
yeah,
the only game that I played as a place I lived was Forza Horizon 4 has Edinburgh in it, and I think
Yes,
that's the
it
only time
did.
Edinburgh has appeared in a game, and that was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, oh my god, this is crazy! They put Edinburgh in a video game, so that was very cool.
That is cool. Yeah, that's very
but
cool.
no, I mean loosely, I've been jumping in and playing some Night Rain, mostly with randoms because
Yes.
Jordan and Keith have abandoned me.
Well, we haven't. Keith was away at Summer Games Fest, so
I
that
saw
was
you guys
why.
playing it on Steam.
Yeah, we actually did the other
Yeah,
day.
see what I see. I also
It's all right,
played.
Jeff. I'll
Date.
buy it and we can play it instead.
I also played Date Everything. So
Oh
if you ever wanted
yeah,
to,
yeah. How's that?
flirt with your fridge or like,
Hell yeah.
you know, actually sleep with your bed, you can. But no, it's interesting. Like this has the most impressive voice cast I think in gaming history.
It's like
Because there
literally
are
every
like,
voice actor, right?
well, yeah, because like there's literally everybody. Like it's like Ben Starr plays a character named Dorian. I'll give you 2 seconds to guess what object in the house he is. And then you get tons. Like it's got what is it, Gabe Newborn or whatever, Neilborn or whatever his name
Neil
is.
Newman.
Neil Newman, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the guy
Do you
from
know
Baldur's
what
Gate.
Do you know what I'm waiting for though? On a semi-serious note, is a video game where Troy Baker plays every character.
Could happen.
Yeah, I'm good without that. Yeah, I mean, other little things and stuff. Like I played a little bit of the Space Marine Mastercrafted edition and stuff like that, which is really nice. I just want some time to be able to devote to that, but I'm playing two pretty big games right now. I mean, not big as in stature, but in terms of like, they're just taking my time.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, let me talk about something that I got to play. Well, I got to play a couple of hours of anyway. And it is Wu Chang Fallen Feathers.
Oh.
I got to go hands on with it for about 3 hours in London not too long ago, thanks to 505 who are publishing the game. It's a new Souls-like from a Chinese developer who I forget the name of right now. But it's really cool because it's less chaotic than any Souls-like I've ever played, and combat feels more like a chess match because when you're in combat, the game will lock you into attack animations, which means you have to think about when to attack, because if you attack at the wrong time, you can't dodge away. So you actually have to kind of time everything out in the right way, right?
It's not a hack and slash?
It is, but you have to think more about it. So it's very methodical, and it's very like You have to actually learn the attack pattern and then go, okay, when do I need to dodge? When should I attack? You have to kind of learn how long your attack is going to take so that you know that you have time to get away.
There's no animation canceling?
No. So as far as I could tell, there's no animation canceling. So you literally are locked into whatever your choice is until the animation finishes. But that makes it feel more like a chess match when you're playing it in terms of combat, because you actually have to think a bit more deeply about what you're doing. And then in terms of death, it's doing an interesting thing where when you die, you get stronger, but you also take more damage. And when you die, you know how in a Souls game, often it'll be the enemy that kills you, you have to kill them to get your souls back, right? This can be that, and they can also be on the floor. But on occasion, what will pop up is like a spirit version of yourself, and you end up having to fight yourself to get your souls back.
Is there kind of like a limit to where you're taking more damage? Because if you've died 50 times and all of a sudden you come back and you have 10 HP.
So there is so it doesn't, so you taking more damage doesn't decrease your HP. It just makes you get hit harder.
Yeah, but it's
you
like, where does that end?
So there are ways to reset it in the
Okay.
same way that like you
Like if you
can
go
refill
bonfire.
heals, right? Yeah, so in the same way that you can kind of refill your heals or whatever, there are ways to reset it. So it might be like you might have died from a boss in one area, but if you then leave that area and go to another area and rest at a bonfire there, you're going to reset that problem.
Okay.
So there's different things to it. It's really cool. It's going to be on Game Pass day one, so I would recommend checking it out. It's coming out in
Yeah, it
July.
seems they're almost like taking like the Stellar Blade role, where like your character has like kind of like overly sexual, like almost costumes in a way, like it has that fan service element to it. So like I don't know if they saw Stellar Blade and they're like, hey, let's jump on that.
Maybe. And then another thing I really liked about the game, actually, that's worth calling out is I think they said there's roughly about 25 unique weapons in the game. And each weapon significantly changes the way you play. So, for example, with some weapons you can block, with other weapons you can do this thing where you kind of throw yourself up in the air to avoid ground attacks and stuff like that. And there's also certain weapons will work together where you can do like a quick switch between them and use them in cool, unique ways. And the way you charge those special abilities is through perfectly dodging attacks, which again comes back to the thing of they don't want this to be a chaotic Souls-like. They want this to be think about what you're doing, take your time, learn when to dodge, learn when to use your specials, learn when to attack, right? And to me, that it makes it one of the most interesting Souls-like games that I've played so far. And I don't know whether it's going to grab other people. I think for some people it will really put them off, especially the no animation cancelling thing. But for me, it makes it feel unique, and that genre, with how many games are in it now, needed something to feel unique. You know, it needed a game that was going to have some element of uniqueness to it. So I'm happy that this game exists, and I do have a full written preview on the Outer Haven right now, which you can go and check out. But I'm looking forward to playing it. Myself and Jeff should both be playing it for review at some point.
Yeah.
So I'll have a review on the Outer Haven. Jeff will handle our review at Analog Stick Gaming. But yeah, I would say even just from the 3 hours that I've played, if you have Game Pass, this is a game that's worth at least trying out for an hour or so, and you'll know very quickly whether you're going to like it or not.
Didn't realize it was
Yeah.
Game Pass. It's good.
And it's interesting too because, like, this game's coming out like the end of July.
Yes, I believe the
we've also
21st of July. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
and then
soon.
we've got Wukong that's going to be coming out in August.
Yeah, for Xbox. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. But yeah, other than that, I haven't been playing much because my mind's been on Death Stranding 2, which is coming out next week. So I'm kind of gearing myself up to play that and immerse myself in that at the minute. But yeah, I think I've been quite grateful for the Switch 2 in that sense, because it's been very easy to hop in and out of games when I'm not really sure what I want to play. So thank you for Nintendo for providing me that, for allowing me the opportunity to play more games in handheld, because I do. There is something about playing games in handheld that I really like, and just kind of laying in bed, playing a little game before I sleep at night. It's
for sure.
It's just cool. It's just cool. But Naman, thank you for joining us for
Thanks
this
for having me.
wonderful Nintendo-based episode. We really appreciate it. We will obviously have you on again in the future, and it could be about Nintendo, it could be about Yakuza, it could be about any number of
Stranger
things.
Than Heaven. Get me back on when that comes out. That's the
yeah. That looks great. That looks
does,
great. But that's a conversation for another day. For people who may want to follow you, where can they do that?
You can. I'm mainly on Blue Sky these days. You can find me at NBZ on Blue Sky.
I think everyone's mainly on Blue Sky. We sort of ignore that other place now.
So you can find me there at NBZ. You can find my podcast.
I'll share the link below, so make sure you go and follow
my podcast, This Nintendo Life. It's on all podcasting services. You can download it on everywhere, and we're on YouTube as well. But yeah, we do that every 2 weeks. It's me and my friend Bally. We talk about Nintendo mainly. Also, other stuff,
I still think we got to try and persuade you guys to do a video version of that podcast, though.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We like our little audio hole, so maybe one day. But yeah, that's where you can find me mainly, and then. If you want to check out some games I'm involved with publishing, probably the best place to go is to the PlayStack Steam page that has links to all of our upcoming games and games that are already out. If you're interested.
And no joke, if you haven't, please go and play Balatro, because it's an amazing game. And that's not just me saying that. I keep trying to say to Jeff that he should play it, but it's really not his style of game.
I tried playing it, and I played a couple rounds, and I'm like, yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, for sure. So
don't lie, it is. It's taking over the world.
Balatro has like 4,000 negative reviews on Steam. There's people out there who don't like it.
Those were robots. They don't. They don't exist.
Those were like real poker players. Were like, this doesn't follow the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
I literally had this game on my phone, and I had to delete it. That's how much of a problem it was. Okay. So whoever's idea that was to bring this game to mobile, please tell them that they've caused a problem for the world.
Yeah, totally. We've got some games coming out this year. One I would point you to with a release date is a game called Void Breaker. It's coming out on August 20th. It is from Daniel Stubbington, who made the Entropy Center, which was the first game that I signed for PlayStation.
Ah, yes. Nice.
And it is a sick as hell first-person shooter roguelike that has heavy destruction focus. And
I'll definitely be checking that one out then.
It's very cool. So it's going to be coming to early access on PC in August. So yeah, check that out.
Nice. Definitely going to check that out. Make sure you go and follow Naman MBZ on Blue Sky, because he's always posting interesting things over there, including apparently his game chats from Nintendo.
Yeah, that's what I got for you.
So and he does sort of like Pokemon, which we didn't speak about today either.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would highly recommend going and following him, following PlayStack as well, because that company seems to just pull like masterpieces out of nowhere at the moment. I don't know who they've got working over there, but somebody's finding all these great games. But yeah, till next time, thank you for joining us. If you have been playing on your Switch too, please let us know below. What do you like and not like about the platform? Make sure you go and follow This Nintendo Life as well if you are a Nintendo fan, because for my money, they are probably one of the best and most consistent Nintendo podcasts out there. So I would highly recommend them, and these guys know more about Nintendo than anybody else I know. So you know, they're definitely my Nintendo news outlet at this point in time. But yeah, that's it. We have nothing else to plug. Please head over to analogstickgaming.com for more reviews, news, all that kind of stuff. Follow us all on Blue Sky. All of the links you need will be in the description below. And we will see you next time. But goodbye for now.
See ya.
Bye.